Hello everyone, Jeremy here, and today I thought it would be fun to show some of the cameras and camera lenses that I've managed to acquire recently. And I wanted to start things off with my mechanical manual cameras. So this is the Pentax K1000, a very iconic manual film camera from way back when. I did a video about this camera quite some time ago, along with the pictures that I got back from it from the very first time that I actually properly shot on film. Something that wasn't just some regular disposable camera, but something where you actually had to fiddle around with the various controls in order to get the exposure right and things like that. And I was pretty happy with how those pictures came out. And I actually have another roll of film in this camera, and I've got about 6 exposures in this shutter is cocked, so if I were to take a picture I would waste a frame at this point. So I'm not going to open up the back of the camera or anything like that, but just give like another broad overview of how things used to be. The lens on this is a 50mm. I believe this is what, an f2. Wow, 50mm f2 lens. It's fairly wide, very basic, quite standard. And one of the things I really loved about these manual cameras is just that metal. Good, nice metal. It's cold. It's got some weight to it, and I really like this camera. I took a few pictures outside with this today. And I just love the feel of it. Love all the mechanical stuff, which is why I believe that so many people were into the Nikon DF before they announced it, and then when I saw it, I was a bit underwhelmed by it. And just another look at one of the lenses, K-mount lenses that I have for this camera. No idea who Star D is, whatever company this is. I have no idea. But this is a 28mm lens, so it's a little wider. Well, it's quite a bit wider than the 50mm, and it's an f2.8 lens as well. Haven't really done a lot of shooting with this lens, but since it is wider than the 50, it could be interesting for some outdoorsy shots. So that's that slightly wider lens. And then on the long end, the old school push-pull telephoto zoom lens. So this zoom lens was made by, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Comiscar? And I don't know if this company back in the day was affiliated with Pentax in some way, and optics were mostly Pentax but just rebranded or something like that. I'm not too sure, but I do know that type of thing does happen, where sort of off-brand lenses are really brand name glass, but they just change up the name for one reason or another, and it sells for cheaper, and people don't understand or know that, so they just pass it up, even though it's the same lens as the first party lenses. So this is a zoom lens with a range of, bring out that cap, 70 to 200 millimeters. And I believe this is the type of lens that if you had a manual camera that could do autofocusing, or at least aperture priority, you could have used this lens for that. But for the K1000, it's all manual, so you have manual focus and everything like that. And yeah, it was a cheap zoom. And this lens, along with the K1000 and that 28mm Star D lens, all got those pretty cheap from eBay, and they all work just fine. Here's another camera, manual camera, that I showed off a while ago. The old Canon TX, the thing that kind of got me into trying to learn how to use these mechanical cameras to begin with. Just like the K1000, very cold metal, good feel, and it's actually bigger. Not sure if you can tell because we are a little bit too tight, but the Canon TX is bigger than the K1000, chunkier to hold. This one also has film in it. Not sure if the shutter is cocked, but this is still a 50mm f1.8 lens. Let's see if we can do that. Yep, 50mm f1.8. So once again, standard prime lens for this camera here. These cameras really all, for the most part, work the exact same way. Cocking the film lever right here and operating the shutter speed over on the top. Difference between this and this K1000 is at the maximum shutter speed on this camera is 1/500th of a second, whereas the K1000 is 1/1000th of a second. So twice as fast, give you a little bit more flexibility if it's super bright outside. And the focusing mechanisms on this camera is different. You cannot see on the inside. Nope, you cannot see through the viewfinder how the light meter works, but it's slightly different. Whereas the K1000 just basically has a light meter that's one little meter that goes up and down, and you have to try to get in the middle. This one kind of has that as well, but it also has a little ring, so you have to get that needle in between that ring, and it's kind of indicated by the very top of the camera right there, and that's how you would know your focus. And I know that the modern Canon cameras do not take the type of lenses that these cameras have. I believe these were like FD mount lenses, so I think this could not go on any modern Canon camera. But yeah, the only lens that I ever have for this, and let's see, how much film? It only took about, what's that? Between, again, about 5 to 6 exposures with the film that I have in here. So yeah, holidays coming up, I should definitely get on that. So those were the old school mechanical cameras, but I have another quite old camera coming up right here. This is the Polaroid 420 automatic land camera. What the heck does that mean? Honestly, I never knew why they called it a land camera, but I can tell you that this is the type of camera that came out way back in the day. I believe that this camera, when I got it, it came with the original warranty card, and I think it read around Christmas time in the late 60s, I think, almost to the 70s. And if you remember old real Polaroid cameras from back in the day, whenever you take the picture and the Polaroid would come out the top or come out the side or something like that, and you take it out and you shake it and you get your picture instantly, this is like the primitive version of that. The way that this camera works is that it has these bellows here that you have to extend out, and you extend those out simply by lifting up on this, and then you pull it out. You pull it out like that, and then you're ready to go. It's a fixed focal length, and in order to focus this camera, you got these knobs right here. This one right there, and then there's another one right over here. Probably can't even see that. And the idea is when you look through the viewfinder, well, you have to look through this. Wow, these things can get kind of complicated. There's two things you have to look through. You've got this focus hole right here in the actual viewfinder. You have to look through the focus hole, and then you have to push these two levers here. You have to push it left and right and left and right, and as you do that, it pushes the bellows in and out. And there's a split image on the inside of here. So if you're taking a picture of a person, you'll see them as two separate images, and you have to push these two knobs back and forth in order to align those images, and then at that point you look through the viewfinder. which is quite big. I wish the viewfinder on my DSLR was this big. So it's big and it's bright. And then once you're finally ready, you take this shutter, you cock it down, you press this button right here, it takes the picture, and then once you got film in it, these little tabs right here, once you take the picture, you pull this tab out, the film comes out of this side, then you pull that out, and then you wait for the picture to develop. Now these days, when you want to use a camera like this, most likely you're going to be using some Fuji film and some Fuji automatic film, which I believe that they said they weren't going to be making I believe it's the FP3000B film, so it's the black and white film. Said they weren't going to be making that for too much longer. I think someone has stepped in besides the Impossible Project to keep that going. But yeah, it's kind of expensive. It's about $10 a pop for the same number of exposures. So it's something that you really have to know what you want to take a picture of and get it right, and make sure that you have plenty of sunlight, because if you don't, and you're doing this handheld, if you don't use a flash, you're going to get a blurry picture. But here's just an example of how a picture taken from this camera looks. So that was just me. I taught my girlfriend how to use this camera, and I was like, just take a picture, because I was taking pictures of everyone else and no one was taking a picture of me. So she just took this picture of me, give you an idea of the size and type of pictures that this thing can dish out. And also, we need to explain this. This battery. What the heck is that about? Well, with these cameras, on this particular model, it takes a battery. The problem is the type of battery that it takes. It's still made, but it's very, very rare. Rare as in you're not going to find it in any store. You can find it online, but that battery could cost you, $7, $10, maybe even more dollars. But the interesting thing is, these type of cameras can be converted to use modern day AA batteries. So, believe that this camera took a 3-volt battery that you really can't find normally. So, after doing some research online and on the internet and such, I went out to Radio Shack and I bought this little battery holder here. And I opened this up, and it's really easy. I know that it seems like, you're converting a battery, it seems difficult, but it's really not. All I did was open this up, and the battery connectors that were in it, I just cut them off with scissors. I got this battery holder here that had the red and the black wires already connected to it. And all I did was strip the wires just a little bit, strip the coating off the wire in order to expose it, and then twist the white wire to the red wire and the black wire to the black wire, put 2 AA batteries in here, and it's good to go. And the way that you know that the shutter is working, which I can't properly demonstrate because there is still film in the back of this, I think there's 2 more exposures left. You cock the shutter, you push the shutter release, and if you hear 2 clicks, it's kind of like click, click. You hear that, then you know the shutter is working. You can also just look in the back of the camera by opening this back. This is where the film goes. You open that up and you can look at the shutter. And if you see it open and close, then you know that it works properly. So yeah, that's a bit of a lengthy explanation about this particular camera, this Polaroid land camera. But, hey, what can I say? This thing, I was just completely fascinated by it. It's so old school. It comes with a case, kind of, that you can attach to it in the front, but I usually don't leave it on. But yeah, this is the Polaroid land camera, something I got for quite cheap, and it's pretty fun to just pull that film out of it and see your picture instantly. I know it's like, with digital, we do that all the time, but there's something about those old instant film processes. It's almost like, wow, how did they know how to do that back then? But they did, and it's pretty awesome. Now let's bring things back into the modern age with the Sony QX10 lens style camera. I was really excited about this when it was still a rumor and when it was official, up until the point when I got it. I bought it from Amazon, but I didn't buy it from Amazon because this was all sold out. Got it from a third-party seller, but fortunately I still paid the same price when it was brand new, $250 for this camera. And I've seen it sell for as low as $169 at this point. This camera, I gotta tell you, interesting concept, flawed execution, slight buyer's remorse. So in case you never heard of this camera, even though it doesn't look like a camera, it looks like a lens. That's because there's no viewfinder on it, and the viewfinder is actually your smartphone. You go into the Sony Play Memories application, you connect this camera to your phone, Android or iOS, through Wi-Fi, or you can just pair it to your Android phone through NFC. The phone talks to the camera, and then once you go through that app, your viewfinder becomes your phone. And then you got these clips on the back of the lens camera that you can use this top one to clip to your phone, and it just basically makes your phone look like a camera. I'll just demonstrate that. Why not? So we just pop these two up. We just pop those two up, stick that in there like that. It locks down, and this is how it looks once you're done. This is this camera attached to an iPhone 5. So yeah, it looks like a camera. And the whole idea behind it was to replace your smartphone camera for something that has better optics. This has a bigger sensor than most smartphone cameras, or all smartphone cameras. The video quality is better than the majority of smartphone cameras, better than the iPhone 5, better than the iPhone 5S, because, as I said in one of my earlier videos, because this is an actual camera. The problem is with the application that runs it. Play Memories Mobile is not good. Now granted, it's better than it used to be. It used to not work really well at all for iPhone, but a couple of updates into the life of the QX10 and the $500 QX1000, which I really feel bad for someone who bought that, who has an iPhone or even an Android phone for that matter. It's so limiting. It gives you very limited manual controls. You can't control the ISO. On the QX10, you can't control the aperture. I believe you can do that on the QX100. It's just so limiting, and the practical use of this camera as something that you would actually take pictures with while you're out and about is not. It's just not realistic. It takes too long to sync to your phone. It doesn't take a long time as far as time in general goes, but compared to a point and shoot camera or any other type of camera, it just takes too long. And if the connection drops, then you have to start it back up again. And I think that the best use you can get out of a camera like this is really to shoot video for some interesting angled shots perhaps, but I don't know. For the $250 I paid for this, I make myself quite depressed to think if I had just known what I know now, I probably just would have gotten a Pentax Q. The Emerson HD Action Cam. The little action camera that was sold at Big Lots for under 40 bucks that I picked up and reviewed quite a while ago. And it's a camera. It's not like the same type of cameras like the ones that I showed, but it's one of these cameras that you mount to your bike, or you can mount to your helmet, or something like that, and you can just record your various outdoor activities, riding bikes, climbing mountains, snowboarding, things like that. Is basically the cheap version of a GoPro. And basically, when it all came down to it, I thought that the video was decent for the price, because this was only like $35, something like that. By no means comparable to a GoPro. No means. Just, there is no comparison. GoPro has some very nice wide angle lens. GoPro's look is very distinctive. This is nothing like a GoPro, so never expect it to be. The actual still quality photos that you can take with this camera are absolutely awful. I wouldn't recommend that anyone do it, but you know, it's very light. It does feel of plastic, but the price is so cheap. I think that those little caveats are forgivable for this little camera. If you just wanted to take something out when you're riding your bike or just doing some various outdoor activities, then, you know, I didn't think it was a bad bargain. So just know that it's not anything great. Definitely not going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but it's just another little camera that I got sitting around in one of my drawers.